Good afternoon. So I am Joe Tenike. I did 15 years in the Army as a vet. Last 8 years I've been working in information security, both red and blue. Last 2 years at Target. So I started out at Target as an attacker. About a year ago I transitioned over to defense. And as I did, my boss said to me, hey, your goal this year is to significantly improve our hunting program. All right. So I, because I'm a veteran, said, yes, sir. And then I went back to my desk, and because I'm an IT guy, I hit Google and said, what's threat hunting? And I hit exactly the problem that Rob describes, right? There is a million definitions of threat hunting. Everybody does it differently. None of them are incredibly helpful. And it's just people saying, I do this, I do this, I do this. So I backed up from the problem a little bit. I said, okay, what does Target need threat hunting to be? And we had been hunting at this point, right? So at this point, we already have guys going into a room every week. We have level 1, level 2, level 3. They're going into a room. They're working together all week. They're hunting. We have a program that's generating results. So it's not like I'm taking a pile of crap and trying to make it better. I'm taking something that's good and trying to make it better. So I go and I start saying, what does Target need threat hunting to be? We have good detection. We have good IR. So I don't need it to be those things. That leaves me with unknowns. I need to look for unknowns. We need it to be something that we can iterate through rapidly. We have a huge network. So saying, oh, I can hunt 10,000 machines isn't enough. I have to be able to hunt 200,000 machines. It's something that we need, right? Everybody needs threat hunting because it gives us that back check if we miss anywhere else. And ultimately, I came to the conclusion that it needs to be big data, right? I need to look at as much data as I can and process that as iteratively as I can. What it's not is traditional IR or detection, right? So when you talk about traditional IR, you're talking about something that's artifact-based. You take something, it fires to glass, you grab it, you look at it, you move back and forth in time, you say, this is what happens, you tell a story. All right, it's really good at being IR. It's not so good when you don't have that alert on the glass. It's not so good with the unknown. And I don't need it to be detection. Detection, detection, again, is artifact-based, right? But now we're comparing artifacts against known values or signatures, you know? And for the bad guy to beat that, just takes a little bit of change. And again, I'm looking for unknowns. So it's neither of those. And that's not to say either one of those is wrong, right? They're both good and necessary and do what they're intended to do, but you slap a mustache on a deer and suddenly they don't work, right? They can't find unknown. Definitionally, they can't find unknown. You need something else. Hunting is different. It's still artifacts, right? I still need a computer to hunt against. But now I need 1,000 computers, or I need NetFlow. I need to place those artifacts in time or space. When I talk about time, I'm talking about network traffic, right? How does it look on average over time? What's different, what's not different, what's expected, what's unexpected? And space, I'm talking about my hosts. I have X amount of processes. Why does this computer only have this process? Nowhere else in my 100,000 machines does it exist, only here, right? And we rely on the fact that attackers have behaviors that are different than users. Users act a certain way because they have objectives they have to accomplish all day long. Attackers act a different way because their objectives are different. So I want to see where those differ in time and space. So I went through all that, and I came up with this pretty mission statement, right? Hunt team activities will use intelligence-driven use cases to iteratively search the enterprise forest for advanced indicators of compromise missed by conventional detection methods. Our goal is to terminate ongoing malicious activity and produce actionable intelligence to improve target security postures. Use cases will be generated using internal and open source intelligence, situational awareness of the state of the enterprise network, and findings will be utilized to create cases for isolation and investigation, close detection gaps, and create actionable alerting, which is really pretty. And it gave me a what I was doing, or what we were doing. But it didn't really give me a how. Nothing I've talked about yet says you should do it like this, right? So the question now is, how do I take that mission statement and turn it into something that I can give a level 3, a level 2, and a level 1 each week and say, do it this way, and we'll get better as an organization. The thought did occur to me that what we were basically doing was asking evidence-based questions, right? Questions where we're going to take evidence and try to answer it that way. I came up with this high-level process. Again, I'm an Army guy, so I like simple processes, right? We prepare, we find, and we communicate. Not quite in-depth enough because nothing tells you what it's actually doing. So I broke it down a little bit, right? And we start in our preparation, we ask questions, we do research, and we form a hypothesis, right? Once we have that hypothesis, we develop experimentation. We test whether or not that experimentation is working. We troubleshoot it. Is this looking familiar yet? After that, once we have it working, we analyze and draw our conclusions. Is our hypothesis correct? Is it incorrect? And then we communicate all results. And I should have underlined all. Communicate all results. And then I refactor it, and we go back, and we include it in future hunts, right? So I was really excited about this until I realized I learned it in the 8th grade, because it's just a scientific method, right? Like, it is. So, I'm thinking, yeah, this is good. And it's somewhat of a relief, right? Because if you look around this room, everything here, to some extent or another, was brought to you by the scientific method, right? The light bulbs, the computers, all this stuff. What that means is that I have a proven method for hunting. It gives us all this other stuff. I can trust it, if I follow it, to give me results hunting too, right? And it leaves me just to communicate those results. And the communication, I think, is incredibly important. At Target, we break it down 3 ways. We break it down into the cases we generate, the detection gaps we find, and then the informational requests we have, all right? And each one of those has very deliberate intentions behind it. Cases show us current state. What am I doing today to improve Target? How did we help Target be more secure today? All right, we found X infections. We found this data. And it's really the hunter's time to say, look how cool I am. I found all this cool stuff, right? Future state. Our incident response is bigger, faster, stronger. We now know this. We now can find that. So in the future, Target's more secure. And then the last one is building the team, right? Informational. Who did we talk to? What did we communicate? That way, maybe we can affect more than just our security org by our hunting activities. We can bring in outside information, right? Because I am pretty good at security, but maybe I'm not so good at IIS logs, right? Maybe there's somebody that knows more. Maybe there's somebody that knows more about how Active Directory is configured in our environment. Maybe there's someone that knows more about a whole lot of stuff that you just can't be the expert in everything. So bring in those outside sources and communicate that so that we can make Target overall better, not just the security. The practical application of this, very early on, was about the time that David released his threathunting.net. I'm sorry, David, I just realized I left a T off. Threathunting.net. What is it? Did I get it wrong? No, it's just yeah. Right? He released these. I looked at them and said, hey, these are brilliant. I'm going to take them off his GitHub, put them in our GitHub, and we're going to start tracking them within our organization. So we now use these playbooks within our organization, not just what's on the website, but some that we generate ourselves. And we made a couple modifications that I want to call out while we're looking at these, right? But what they allow us to do is track historical knowledge. They give me an easy-to-edit page that I can give to the incident handler leading the hunt each week and say, tell me the key things that you find. right? We have what data is required to do that hunt. We have what problems we may come up against getting that data. We have what analysis techniques have been successful and unsuccessful. We have a general description so that someone can read it and understand what we're hunting on. And then we have more info, which is just links to past documentations, to outside articles, to all the great stuff that people are doing in the world. And then we have that field right above the top. It says HMLO, right? And we'll talk more about that later. But that's how we track it internally to sort of make sure we're always moving forward. And that's done every week, and we do it under peer review, meaning that I don't get to decide how cool I am, everybody else has to decide how cool I am. And then we have a read on and a read off every week to communicate all these things. So we read on, we say, well, what are we doing this week? And when we read off, we say, what did we do? How did it work? What didn't work? Again, I'm just a simple Army guy, so I literally took an Army AAR and just put it on a PowerPoint and said, let's do this every week, right? What works, what doesn't work, how can we improve? And ultimately what we want to do is take all this and map it to the attacker life cycle. So we can say, by using this hunt, we can look for these type of attacks in these areas, and this is how we break it down. But again, I got through all that and said, crap, I still have a problem, right? Because it's just a scientific method. I'm just applying it. So do these two people, right? Einstein, that's what he did. But so did my high school science teacher. So the problem is, how do I create Einstein and not a bunch of crappy high school science teachers, right? And it's exactly the problem that's the hardest to solve, right? Because I can put 3 people in a room, but how do I make sure that they're actually doing something that's productive? So I'm thinking about this problem, and I'm pondering this problem, and I was listening to a podcast one day. It's the Stuff You Should Know podcast. And they did an episode on the scientific method. And I said, oh, this is cool. This is lucky timing for me. And in there, they had this quote that said, the scientific process, any scientific process, relies on 2 legs. It relies on the quality of the data that you're feeding into the process and the quality of the analyst who is analyzing that data, right? Cool, I can rip off somebody else's stuff yet again, right? And I took that, and because, again, I'm a simple Army guy, any Army out there will recognize I just built a risk matrix and called it something else, right? And it gives me 2 legs. It gives me a way to quantify how the analysts are doing each week, and a way to quantify how the data is each week. And then I can cross-reference those and see how a given hunt went each week. So I'm a fan of matrices because it's nonlinear. It's not you do A, then B, then C. It accounts for a little bit more variance, right? Multivariable is always better than single variable. The data being, what are we looking at? And then the analyst being, who and how are we looking? And those are both equally important questions. I can give a less competent guy the best data in the world and not get anything out of it. But I can give the most competent guy crappy data, and I'm still not going to get anything out of it. So in order to get anything, we need both of those to grow. 3 stages each way, and it's just to reflect the growth in 2 dimensions. One's the growth of our people, and one's the growth of our technology. So growth of our people goes from uninformed to highly knowledgeable, you know? That guy that can't differentiate base 64 from SHA-1 to a guy that just whips up the Python on the fly and knows it all, you know, to a David Bianco, right? And the data is from standard to very use-specific data, right? So the data stage 1, we kind of think of it as data that's just byproducts of things that already exist in our environment, right? Like firewall data isn't really useful to hunting, but it already exists in our environment, so why not use it. It's functional data, right? Data stage 2 is data that we collect for the sake of collecting data, right? It's stuff that allows us to correlate between two sources, allows us to start doing those pivots. It's data for data's sake. And stage 3 data is data that's for hunting, right? It's the stuff that's generally very expensive to collect. It's not very useful for alerting, but it gives us this incredible ability to create big pictures of what's going on in our environment. The analysts, this kind of mirrors the data, right? So the analysts, when they start out, stage 1, is someone that's grabbing scripts off of GitHub and just running those scripts. It's very entry level, and it's often will be tied to vendor-based solutions, right? Somebody else puts it in your lap and says, do this every week, and you'll find bad stuff. Analyst stage 2 is research-based. What do we know? How do we identify it? What is it in my environment? So it's not that they're taking somebody else's knowledge and just saying, all right, I trust it and I'll run it. They're actually building their own knowledge. And to get here, you can just start investing in your analysts, right? So we talk about how we put 3 analysts, our most experienced, our sort of middle ground, and our least experienced guy in a room all week. Part of that is so that we can start investing in that least experienced guy and say, hey, what do you think of this problem? What do you think of this problem? How do we solve them? And we work with that person, you know? And arguably, it's better to take the time to invest in that analyst than it is to take the time to invest in rapid solutions at this point, right? So I'm better off growing a guy that's gonna be a rock star for the next 5 years than I am knocking out a couple cases this week, right? So take the time to invest in these guys. And then stage 3, which has required this heavy investment in analysts, suddenly we're at the point where we're doing self-made automation. We're doing rapid iteration. And starts and ends with automation, but where it comes from is a very important distinguisher, right? So if I have a guy that's doing it himself, then that means that automation is custom for my environment. It accounts for the variables and the problems that we have in our environment, and it allows us to very quickly run it through our environment to find the bad that exists there, not what somebody proved in the lab. All right, so an example of this, we were hunting, a couple months ago, we were hunting producer-consumer ratio in our environment. So for each of these, we kind of had some quick examples. So we were looking basically at proxy logs, you know, because that's where you get producer versus consumer. If you don't know what that is, it's how much my computer takes in versus how much it puts out in any given period, right? And then the first stage for the data is just kind of looking at single events, right? Bytes in versus bytes out. Oh, we had a really large packet go out there, but there's no sort of understanding of that in the context of time. Maybe that user always sends out large streams of data, right? Then we move that up and we start examining it by groups. We group it by user. We do bytes in versus bytes out over a period of time. We look at it maybe an hour or 24 hours. And then we use sources like VirusTotal and Alexa to get rid of data that we know is good, right? So maybe we eliminate sites that we know are good. And hopefully we're not finding sites that we know are bad, but we're just concentrating that data to the unknowns, right? And then the final stage is we weigh that data against itself. So what we did in this particular case is we looked at each user and we gained a 30-day average of their producer-consumer ratio. And then we weighed 24-hour periods against that 30-day average to see how their behavior changes when weighed against their own behavior, all right? For the analyst, you know, stage 1, we have to work with what we have. We're just evaluating individual connections, right? For stage 2, it requires that analyst to get in there and understand what's really contained in those data. What is it really telling us? How do we process larger and larger data sets, right? And for the stage 3, what it requires is the analyst to develop a plan to look at very large data sets. You know, we're not talking 100,000 log entries, you know? We're talking 100 million log entries. So how do you really do large data sets? And that's sort of how it works not in theory, but in practice, how we move it up on a specific hunt. That particular hunt left us with this, right? Which is just a heat map, which is one of my favorite data visualization tools, even though David didn't talk about it, right? But this, I eliminated the indexes just for reasons, but, well, really, so I could zoom in, and I just did horrible at zooming in. But along the left, you see our baseline column, which gives us sort of the baseline for every user, which is why it's a consistent color. And as colors get more red, they're bad, more blue, they're good. Or that's not true. As they get more red, they're more of a producer, more blue means more of a consumer. And that's a shift against their own average, right? So if you look at this, you can see a couple red spots. Turns out you need to filter out advertising sites that just send data to themselves all day long. But, you know, we took it, we moved it along, and then we take that information, we pivot around with it, and then we continue to grow. And then, you know, just to reiterate, this is how we take it week by week. We say, our analysis this week, what stage is it at? Our data this week, what stage is it at? And we use that combined score to say, how's our hunt on this topic doing overall? And we take that, we say, at our hunt readout each week, we say, here's where I think my maturity is, here's what we did that we think justifies these maturity scores, and then we submit it to our peers, and our peers review it and say, yeah, that looks good, or no, it doesn't look good, or maybe you're being too hard on yourself, maybe you're not really understanding the awesomeness that you did, or maybe we could do it better next time. And that's how we at Target take our program and sort of encapsulate it in this model so that we can continually be growing and continually be driving it forward, and everybody grows from it.